The Long March was the process. This was the process of them fighting to either control or dismantle the culturally shaping institutions, which they believe prop up capitalism and, in our view, the kind of the American view of the world, and to replace it with a socialist one, with more of a Marxist-oriented one. And Christian's argument is that when you look at the Long March to the institutions, they've essentially completed it. And look, I think you can make a very convincing argument that when it comes to, let's just list off some culturally shaping institutions, and we'll ask all of us here, do we think that the left has attained sufficient ideological capture? So Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, that's gone.
Christian says yes.
I think you have to caveat with, because I think we see things going a different direction right now, and moving away. So before that moving away started, yes.
Okay, so we'll do this. Christian
because we are all seeing how legacy media is now failing. We're seeing that there's alternative things, and so because we're seeing that, we needed to kind of take a step back and go, like, before that initiated, where were we?
I don't disagree, but I want to separate. You said legacy media. I want to separate Hollywood, that like arts and entertainment. Well, maybe that's a broader category, from journalism. So arts and entertainment. Are you saying partial capture, sufficient capture, or there's a rebellion taking place?
I feel full capture.
Full capture. Okay.
Capture.
So you both agree with full capture. I would say that when we look at Hollywood as an institution, full capture for the most part. You got some things out there that are a little, some studios that are kind of fighting back and whatnot. But I do think that there's an element within arts and entertainment that we're starting to see this organic rebellion taking place. Nerdrotic talks a lot about it. Critical Drinker talks a lot about it, where now we actually have mechanisms for other people to start to compete with those studios, which I think is encouraging. But I tend to agree that you would be hard pressed to find any, real positive, messaging out of Hollywood.
I think it's full capture, and now anything else that you're starting to see is a response to that full capture.
Well, that's arguably, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but that's
not,
arguably the unraveling.
Wait, stop. We're not going to jump ahead. So I had your answers. We answered that. And the next one is journalism or journalism or media.
Totally fully captured.
Yeah, same thing.
I disagree because I think that as much as you had like your, I think you saw the rebellion on that one actually start earlier with Fox News. And it's not to say that Fox News doesn't have its own.
That's if you don't think that Fox News is controlled opposition.
That's fine. I don't. I don't think that you can argue that Fox News has been fully captured within the long march of the institutions. And I think that one of the things that we saw with Fox News and one of the things that we saw with kind of what you might call punditry on talk radio and things like that is that there had been a fairly complete capture of mainstream media and the big three networks. And then when you started the cable news come on and there was alternatives, you actually started to see a pushback. So I'm not going to give them full capture on journalism. I think it's near full capture.
Okay, so a little bit of clarification is needed here.
Yeah.
The mere existence of Fox News, I think, actually reinforces my point about journalism being captured. When we say that an institution has been ideologically captured basically by cultural Marxists, that the Long March to the institutions has been completed and Gramsci has kind of gotten his way on this, that's not to say that there's not opposition that exists. There was opposition in Italy to Mussolini in the 1920s within the communist left, but Mussolini was still in charge, right? Gramsci was in prison, but that's not to say that there weren't communists out there that were like Gramsci, that were opposed to Mussolini, but they did not have control over the culture. They did not have control over the legislature, the courts, or the government, or the military, or anything like that. And so,
before we get too far down this road, I'm not claiming that it has to be 100% capture to be sufficient, right? And maybe we haven't articulated what that looks like. I would say when you have like overwhelming supermajorities, which means it's not just that the institution has been captured, but the people that actually give that institution credibility, they're the most popular within society. So what I'm saying is that what Fox News represented within journalism when it got going, as well as some other outlets, is that while there was a significant capture, Fox News almost instant popularity demonstrated that they hadn't fully, I don't think they'd fully completed that circle in the way that they have in, say, the next area that I would bring up, which is academia.
I'm just going to push back a little bit here.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because when Fox blew onto the scene, it was not considered real news. That's why Trump does the whole fake news thing, is because originally when Fox came on the scene, all the big media outlets basically acted as though Fox was fake, just silly, stupid clown news.
They all like operated in tandem to attack Fox.
And I'm going to also push back because obviously there are some print medias that are kind of notoriously right-leaning, but they never had the credibility that the true legacy media had. You know, you had like Washington Post always was, they're legit, you know, the New York Times, all of these. And we had like counterbalances to it, but they were never considered very as serious. You've got AP News literally took over every single print media. Even our local paper, all it does is recycle AP news outlets or news articles. And so ours is Culpeper Star Exponent. It recycles anything that comes out of Richmond Times-Dispatch, who recycles everything that comes from AP News. And so what I'm saying is they were a big, giant force that, and I think we started to see the tide turn a little bit there with Fox News, with a few different alternatives, but like they really had captured up until that point.
Well, let's say maybe it would be easier if we did this. Let's say pre-COVID, post-COVID. Is that fair? As kind of a line of demarcation, because I do believe that there was some changes that took place post-COVID.
Okay, so BC and
so pre, yeah.
BC
I don't know if I again, I think we're getting a little bit ahead. I think that a lot of this peaked in arguably 2021 or 2022. But again, think about it from this way.
Well, hang on.
Here's
the problem. We need to define our terms.
Yes, I know. Think about it this way. When Fox News came along, it was known for putting a conservative viewpoint to the news.
Yeah.
Whereas ABC, CBS, CNN, they're the news.
They just considered themselves the news.
And so that is what Gramsci's getting at here. And so when I say that the news has been captured, it's not that there's not conservative news out there. It's that there's conservative news out there. The news is leftist. It's progressive. It's not conservative, and we don't call it until recently liberal media. That's kind of a relatively recent term. For a long time, they just called it the news.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Gramsci's looking for.
Okay.
The Long March to the Institutions is not to say everybody's going to go out there and say, man, we have a liberal Hollywood. No, we have Hollywood, and we have conservative alternative entertainment. We don't have liberal news. We have the news, and we have conservative news.
So the overall point that you're making here, which I think is a very good one that you're both making, is that, look, regardless of whether or not there's the fact that we label the alternative to that as conservative demonstrates the point that they've got the capture.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. So arts and entertainment captured, news captured. That's the argument. Academia, that's one that I feel has been captured. And again, it's
for a long time.
It's not because we don't have Hillsdale or Liberty.
It's because
or
we have Hillsdale.
It's because those are seen as alternative forms of education. They're not even seen as they're not just another institution. They're a conservative institution, whereas all the other ones are seen as just mainstream. And where in real, like no one would label like University of Virginia as, oh no, that's the left wing university, and Liberty is the right wing. It's like, no, that's a Christian university, and that's just a university.
Right.
So no, I totally agree on academia. I think it's been total capture.
Especially you can't. I mean, even going into medical school or anything that is like, you absolutely have to have the education in order to go into this field. These highly technical fields. Even there, you're getting all of the left garbage, like all of the left indoctrination. So it's like, it's not just in your sociology department, right? It's permeating through the entire institution.
Okay, now next one, public school system.
Yes, captured.
Captured.
I agree.
Same thing as the universities.
Well, yeah, but I'm making a distinction, right? Academia, because for a long time, that was not necessarily the case. Right? For a long time, at the same time that your university system was pushing out some pretty radical stuff, kids were still saying a prayer in school. Now, maybe, I think that really started to change in the 50s, but I'd want to make the distinction because I think it's appropriate. So we agree, academia captured, public school captured. Okay. Next one is the church.
Halfway captured.
Yeah, halfway captured. Not done yet is what I'm saying. Not done yet. Because here's the thing is, some of these other areas, it's further down the road, so the pendulum's finally swinging back, like getting ready to swing back. Whereas in the church, I don't think it's done.
I think there's something interesting too about the church, but I want to swing back around to it after I get to these last two. All right, the bureaucracy, the federal or the government bureaucracy,
totally captured.
Total capture, one of the first
totally
to be captured. The last one I'm going to throw out, or the last one I'm going to throw out there as kind of a You might say, well, why didn't you include that with the bureaucracy? And it's because there is its own unique culture, and that's the military.
Higher ups captured. Low-level officers partially captured. The
rank and file.
The rank and file will probably never be captured.
No, like I semi-agree with that. I don't even think all the higher ups are captured fully. I think the military has been like the one long-standing holdout, and the attempt at capture of the military is one of the things that caused the pendulum to swing back.
Okay, so now this is interesting because if we look at this, we look at arts and entertainment, we look at the bureaucracy, we look at academia, public education, we look at all these culturally shaping institutions, and we kind of instantly say, yep, captured, pretty strong ideological capture there. And then we say the two that were like, not as much, the church and the military. Here's what I noticed that's kind of interesting about these. When we talk about the news, when we talk about academia, when we talk about public education, when we talk about arts and entertainment, we're talking about fields that do not necessarily have an underlying commitment to a particular worldview. They do not have, there is not an inherent...
They're not culturally shaping.
Well, okay, that I totally...
The church is, but the military is not culturally shaping.
Stop. Let me get to where I'm going on this, because I didn't say the military. I said these other ones, okay? I think arts and entertainment is absolutely culturally shaping. Absolutely. The difference is that it's an institution that does not have an inherent worldview. It adopts the worldview of the culture that it's in. The church does. In fact, for the vast majority of human history, the church has been the institution that does provide the transcendent link to objective truth and objective morality. So it's culturally shaping and informative in the way that I think has been overall the most resistant, especially to a secular form that's trying to replace it. Because as Gramsci even said, he wanted socialism to be the religion that replaces Christianity, which means socialism was now supposed to provide you your objective sense of truth, morality, meaning, identity, purpose, etc.
This is where wokeism comes from,
and that's what we're going to get into. When you look at all the institutions that were captured first, they were targeted in part because they're culturally shaping, but because they're not necessarily rooted, especially within our culture, within a classically liberal society. They are not, by definition, rooted in an objective worldview. It's almost like a neutral place where you debate these ideas, or you express them, or you talk about them, or you report on them, right? And what we found is that when the left got into these institutions, they were not neutral. They were not neutral.